So now what we're going to do is we're going to cover the fourth and final high side restriction we're covering with you today. And we got all our pressures back pretty close to where we started with this morning. And what we're going to do is we're going to restrict the exit of the dryer right at the cap tube. Too much lock prep, too much solder, kinked, whatever, you do not have an outlet. And you're going to find out this time it's going to be a little different. So we're going to cut that. And this one usually gets a lot of people because they'll say, well, pressures will go high. High side restrictions don't do that. And a lot of people think that a high side restriction is going to go into a deep vacuum and the pressure is going to go through the roof. They're not. Remember, you've only got a finite amount of refrigerant. So once that refrigerant goes somewhere, it's either going to sit and sit. So what'll happen on a high side restriction here, again, remember where your gauges are. This one we are sucking, we're going to go into a vacuum. But this one, we're actually putting all the refrigerant into the high side all the way to right here, so it's going to show right here. So what would happen here is this would go ambient. In other words, the same temperature R134A would be in a tank or in a refrigerant recovery tank in a room, because that's basically what your high side has become, a holding reservoir. So the laws of refrigeration tell us that once it gets stable, it's going to go ambient. So whatever temperature the room is, that's about where we're going. So this room's a little cold or cool, so I'm going to guess around 70, 72 PSI, maybe even 68, and this will go into a vacuum. And this will go into a real deep vacuum. And this should drop down. Now again, amp draw is going to start dropping, voltage is going to start dropping, because we're not working it real hard. The only time voltage and amp draw went through the roof is with the restriction right close to the dryer, or correction, right close to the compressor around the discharge. And, you know, I wasn't able to show it, but let's say it was in that, just a little bit of the condenser stopped up. That's where you get those high pressure and the high amp draw, or not pressure, but high amp draw and high voltage. Excuse me 1 second. Auto off on the meters. Tried to make sure this wasn't going to happen to us, but there we go. And just so this one doesn't do it. All right. We're down in a vacuum. We're at about, I guess, 75. Amp draws low, voltage low. My compressor's not overheating, but basically, guys, what's happened is we've sucked all the refrigerant, pushed it over here. It's gone through the Yoder. It's come through the dryer. That's why you got positive pressure, and it's stopping right there. It can't go any further. So this is going to become a storage vessel. Those are your 4 types of restrictions. Now, with the restriction, how you deal with it, there's a couple of different ways. You can actually start isolating things to find out where your restriction is. A lot of times we'll tell you to cut discharge in here and see if you've got flow through the condenser. Then we'll have you cut and blow. You could actually blow from here, pinch off your cap tube. Since you already cut your condenser out, you can blow backward. Whoa, don't do that. You could blow backward to see if your Yoder is open, but it's going to involve nitrogen and blowing the lines out. We suggest blow in reverse direction. So if there's a clog, hopefully we'll blow it out. Guys, if you got a condenser that you can't blow through, replace it. If you've got a Yoder line that you can't blow through, blow backward, and a lot of times it will blow clear. It seems the hardest restriction to get rid of is an oil-based restriction. I've had to sometimes sit with a unit pressurized for 30, 40 minutes before an oil-based restriction will blow out. So again, I would be coming this way through to here if my oil restriction was in my Yoder loop. A restriction in the condenser, guys, replace the condenser. You can go up to 300 PSI on the high side if it's all steel with no problem. So you can do that to blow out that restriction. Now, what we also recommend on a lot of these restrictions is once you get some nitrogen flowing, bring in your recovery tank, and if you have liquid refrigerant, preferably like 410, because it's a higher pressure, blow it backward. Use that liquid to cleanse out the lines, but you got to recover the refrigerant. Then when you're done, blow it again with nitrogen before you hook it up to start your process of evacuation, or of leak check, then evacuation. But restrictions, the key is figuring out where did my restriction occur. With us right now, we're seeing the majority of our restrictions are occurring after the service. But everything I just went through today could also occur before the service. So again, first step, verify temperatures, see what's going on. Look at your voltage and amp draw reading. Very low amp draw, low voltage, that's an indication something's not happening right in the system. I feel it working. I don't, of course with a linear, we're not getting any real heat exchange to feel. But at this point, I'm like, okay, I've got to tap the system. I go in the system and I see something like this, and we're right about where I said we'd be. Looks like just above 75 or 75. So maybe it's a little warmer in the room I thought, but that's an ambient. So the refrigerant is just sitting there like it's in my storage tank, and this is in a vacuum. So if I do away with the restriction, everything will return to normal in just a few minutes. So if you have any problems with restrictions, hopefully this video has helped you out. To me, the key is always remembering where I'm measuring the system from. So if I see this going low pressure or into a vacuum, I know that my restriction's prior to the dryer. So I need to start looking, or it's either at the dryer or it's further back, I'm sorry. So you have to think, where am I at? If I'm getting not moving at all, I know it's past. If I'm going down low, it's the other side. Now, depending on how fast it goes into that restriction is going to tell, or goes into low to negative pressure on the high side, is going to tell me if that restriction is here or if that restriction is here. So we appreciate your attendance today, and be safe out there.